Ever wonder how geniuses actually train their brains? Today, we're going to break down the systems they were using, way before neuroscience ever came along and proved they were onto something huge.
So let me just throw this out there. What if I told you your IQ isn't some fixed number carved in stone? Not when you're 18, not when you're 25, not even when you hit 50. And no, this isn't just some motivational poster quote. This is a complete game changer in how we think about our own potential. For, decades, the story we were all sold was that intelligence is genetic. You either have it or you don't, right? Well, that's the myth. The truth, and this is backed up by the lives of some of the greatest minds in history, is that intelligence is really a habit. It's a system that you build, piece by piece, not some gift you're just handed at birth.
And if you think that sounds like just a nice theory, well, let's look at the actual geniuses. Albert Einstein? People thought he was slow as a kid. Charles Darwin? Totally average student, hated memorizing stuff. And Thomas Edison? He was literally expelled and called unteachable. So what was it that changed for them? It sure wasn't their genes. It was their habits.
Okay, so let's jump into the first habit. And this one, it might sound a little weird, a little counterintuitive. It's called thinking without input. And yeah, it's all about how your brain can actually get smarter by doing less.
I think most of us, right, we believe that getting smarter means consuming more stuff. More videos, more articles, more podcasts. Just cram it all in. But here's the crazy part. Neuroscience shows us the exact opposite is true. Your brain has this amazing ability to get smarter when it's forced to think without all that noise coming in. See, this process kicks on something called the default mode network. Now, just think of this as your brain's built-in creative engine. It's the part that's humming in the background, connecting all these scattered ideas, and it's where those amazing aha moments come from. Einstein's famous thought experiments? That was pure default mode network, just firing away while he was walking around, thinking, with no distractions. All right, on to habit number 2, the science of struggle. This is a big one. It's about completely reframing how we look at problems. It's about realizing that not knowing the answer isn't a failure. It's actually the very first step to building a real one. Psychologists have a great name for this: productive struggle. When you try something and you fail and you adjust and then you try again, you're not just spinning your wheels. You're literally physically strengthening the neural pathways in your brain. It's like a workout. And every time you rush to Google for the answer, you're basically skipping a rep. You're robbing yourself of that crucial brain-building moment. So here's a super practical habit you can build right away. Before you reach for your phone to search for an answer, just stop and force yourself to write down your best guess, even if you think it's totally wrong. It doesn't matter. That simple act of struggling is the workout. It's the thing that builds a stronger brain. And this idea of struggling and building leads us perfectly into our third habit, which is all about connecting the dots. The idea here is to stop thinking about facts as these little isolated islands and start building what the famous investor Charlie Munger called a latticework of mental models. When you get good at this, you develop something called transfer intelligence. This is basically a superpower. It's the ability to take a core idea from one field, like, say, the concept of adaptation from biology, and apply it to solve a completely different problem, maybe in business or even in your personal life. This is the secret sauce behind those people who seem effortlessly brilliant at everything. So, here's the habit, and it's a simple one. Every single week, make it a point to learn one core concept from a field that's totally outside your comfort zone. The more dots you give your brain, the more amazing connections it can make. Your intelligence doesn't just add up, it grows exponentially. Okay, habit number 4. This one flies in the face of everything we hear about hustle culture. It's called the energy of genius. And the core idea is simple but powerful. Your brain doesn't upgrade when you're grinding. It upgrades when you're recovering. I want you to think about one number: 4. That's it, 4. That's the number of hours of really deep, focused work that Charles Darwin put in each day. The rest of his time, he spent it walking, resting, thinking. He knew that top-tier thinking isn't endless. It's a precious, finite resource. Look, your brain's executive function, which is a huge part of your IQ, it gets absolutely hammered by chronic stress and not enough sleep. So the smart habit isn't to hustle harder, it's to recover smarter. That means sleeping deeply, moving your body every day, and get this, allowing yourself to be bored. Seriously, boredom isn't a character flaw. It's essential time for your brain to recover and rebuild. All right, habit number 5 is all about taking a tool you probably already own and using it in a totally new way. It's writing to think. And the key here is to use a notebook to clarify your thoughts, not just to collect a bunch of random facts. I mean, just look at Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks. They're a glorious, beautiful mess. They weren't these neat, organized records. They were a living, breathing workspace, just filled with questions, little diagrams, and even contradictions. See, the act of writing forces your brain to hit the brakes, to spot the holes in your logic, and to turn those fuzzy, vague ideas into something sharp and precise. And that brings us to our final habit, deliberate memory training. A lot of people think memory is just about memorizing trivia. It's not. Memory isn't separate from intelligence. It's the absolute foundation that makes fast, sharp thinking even possible. So how do you train it? Well, not by just rereading your notes over and over. That's passive learning, and it just gives you this false sense of knowing something. The real key is active learning. That means forcing your brain to pull information out from scratch, like you're trying to explain it to a friend. That process, called active recall, is what forges those dense, super efficient connections in your brain. Okay, so we've gone through 6 pretty powerful habits, right? But here's the thing. Their real magic isn't in doing them one by one. They work together. Think about it. Thinking without input gets those deep thoughts flowing, but writing to think is what gives them shape. Productive struggle builds new pathways, but you can only do that if you have the mental energy from proper recovery. You see, each habit feeds the others. So let's talk about putting it all together to build a real system. Because alone, they're just tips. Together, they're life-changing. And all of this really leads us to the most important truth of all, the one we've been building up to this whole time. Intelligence is not a hack. No, it is a system that you build through consistent, connected habits. You fuel your brain with rest, you challenge it with struggle, you expand it by connecting dots, and you sharpen it by writing. The smartest people who ever lived didn't just magically have great ideas. They built daily systems that pretty much guaranteed their intelligence would grow day after day after day. So that brings us to the final and really the only question that matters now. It's not about what they did. It's about what you are going to do. So, what system will you build starting